Welcome back to the Wildfiles. We're still in retention mode this month, but today we're zooming in on something most MSP leaders overlook: the early signs. Not the dramatic resignations, not the exit interview, or not the post-mortem when it already cost you time and money and momentum. We're talking about the subtle indicators that show you who is likely to build a career with you and who might quietly move on. Because retention is not guesswork, it leaves clues. In interviews, in onboarding conversations, in how someone responds to feedback, in how they integrate with the team, in how they talk about the future. If you are scaling, if you're planning hires for next quarter, if you want a team that feels settled, not shaky, this episode will sharpen your eye. Let's get into it. Some technicians, they stay for 5 years. Others leave within 12 months. And here's what's interesting. On paper, they look very similar. Same certifications, same tool sets, same years of experience, same MSP backgrounds. So why does one embed and the other exit? Well, it's not luck, and it's not salary, it's not even just culture. It's behavioural alignment. And the signals are there. They're just small. Today we're talking about the stay signals. The ones most MSP leaders miss because they're too focused on, technical competence. So let's start here. Experience tells you someone has survived an MSP. It does not tell you how they survived it. Were they resilient, or were they constantly frustrated? Did they thrive, or did they endure? There is a massive difference between someone who endured an MSP environment and someone who adapted within it. Retention correlates with adaptation, not endurance. And adaptation is visible in language long before day one. Now, ownership language. This is the biggest one. When a candidate describes a difficult period at the last MSP, listen carefully. Do they describe chaos and stop there? Or do they describe chaos and their role within it? For example, the place was disorganised. No one knew what they were doing. Well, that might be true, but it tells you very little about their coping style. Compare that with, it was disorganised at times. I found that difficult, but I learned to document things more clearly and manage expectations earlier. That second answer shows behavioural elasticity. Elasticity predicts longevity. You see, blame predicts friction, and friction under pressure, that accelerates churn. MSPs are ambiguous environments. Priorities shift, clients escalate, processes evolve, growth changes roles. When you describe messy scenarios in interview, watch their body language. Do they lean in with curiosity or do they tighten up? Ask, how do you handle it when 3 clients escalate at once? Listen beyond the words. Some candidates become energized by solving complexity. Others become rigid. And rigidity, or being rigid, struggles in MSPs. Curiosity, that survives. And retention loves curiosity. Here's a subtle one. When you ask about previous mistakes, Does the candidate emit one calmly? Or do they scrabble to present perfection? Perfectionists often struggle in MSP environments, not because they aren't capable, but because MSP environments are usually messy. Will be incomplete. There will be, not them will be. There will be incomplete information. There will be reactive decisions. There will be imperfect documentation. Candidates who need perfect systems to feel stable often become anxious over time. Candidates who accept imperfection and adapt within it tend to stay longer. So, energy under pressure. This is one most leaders, completely miss. When you talk about pressure, what happens to their energy? Does it lift slightly? Or do they become more animated when describing solving difficult tickets? Or does their energy drop? I mean, neither is good or bad, but it tells you about alignment. Some technicians genuinely enjoy problem density. Others preferred structured predictability. So if your MSP is high stimulus and you hire someone who needs low stimulus to thrive, well, the churn becomes predictable. It's not personal. It's an environmental mismatch. So the next one is kind of misunderstood, I'd say. When candidates ask detailed questions about support structures, escalation paths, or, manager visibility, some leaders interpret that as insecurity. Well, it's not. It's maturity. Technicians who think long-term want to understand sustainability. They're not just thinking, can I do the job? They're thinking, can I sustain this for 3 years? And that is a stay signal. Retention is about stability, not heroics. Listen to their CV story. Are they leaving every 12 to 18 months due to culture issues? Or do they show periods of stability and growth? Short tenures are not automatically red flags, but patterns matter. Ask what made you stay at X for 3 years. Their answer reveals what anchors them. If what anchors them previously did not exist in your MSP, that's data. You see, retention is not about convincing someone to adapt. It's about recognizing whether your environment matches their anchors. Now, there is a type of candidate that interviews brilliantly, technically sharp, confident, quick thinking, high energy. But underneath that is low tolerance for uncertainty and high frustration with imperfection. Yes, they shine in interviews, but they struggle in involving environments. And, MSPs often hire them because they're impressive. Impressive does not equal aligned. Alignment equals retained. Here's the real test. When you picture this candidate on your worst week, not your best week, do they feel stable? Worst week means 2 engineers off sick, client escalation, internal project delay, urgent ticket spikes. If your instinct says they might struggle with that instinct is worth interrogating. See, retention is tested in hard weeks, not the calm ones. Stop hiring for confident, dynamic, driven, fast-paced. Start hiring for adaptable, accountable, curious, resilient. These are quieter traits, but they predict longevity. And longevity stabilizes growth. Here's the key. If 3 hires leave within 18 months, it's unlikely coincidence. It's likely a behavioural mismanagement pattern, which means the interview process is over-indexing on technical strength and under-indexing on coping style. That is not a criticism, it's a calibration opportunity. So how do we improve your stay signal detection? Well, some practical tips for you. Add scenario-based questions that test uncertainty. Probe gently when blame appears. Explore previous stability anchors. Ask what frustrates them most in MSP life. Test reaction to shifting priorities. Slow down slightly. The best signals are subtle. And if you rush, you will miss them. The candidates who stay do not behave wildly differently. They just show small, consistent patterns. Ownership, curiosity, elasticity, sustainability thinking. If you learn to spot these patterns early, retention stops feeling mysterious. It starts feeling designed. Because churn is rarely random, it's patterned. And once you see the pattern, you can hire differently. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode, it's this. The people who stay are not a mystery. They leave clues. Not loud ones, not dramatic ones. Small, steady indicators. They take ownership without being chased. They ask better questions over time. They flex when things shift. And they think beyond today's ticket queue. When you train yourself to recognise those patterns early, retention stops feeling like luck. It becomes selection. Because churn is rarely random. It follows behaviour. And behaviour shows up long before resignation does. Stable MSPs do not just hope someone will stick. They hire for the signals, they reinforce the signals, they manage against the signals. So you're looking at Q2 growth and thinking, well, we need more people, but we cannot afford more disruption. This is where you start. You start with better spotting. You start with clearer expectations. And you start before urgency makes the decision for you. And when you do that, stability becomes a byproduct of design, not chance. If this resonated, send it to another MSP leader who's serious about building a team that lasts. Until next time, read the patterns, back the right behaviours, and as always, stay wild.